It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm, then, and do not let yourselves be burdened by a yoke of slavery. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free. But do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. For the entire law is fulfilled in keeping this one commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. If you bite and devour each other, watch out, or you will be destroyed by each other. The United States will be 247 years old in a couple of days. That's a long time for a nation to remain free. But when you look at our history in the context of world history, America is just a child among the nations. Egypt, China, Japan, Rome, Greece, and many more all make America's history seem very short. We are very young, and yet we stand tall among the nations because of the principles on which we were established. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thus begins the Declaration of Independence, which we celebrate today. And do not let anyone fool you. Freedom ought and needs to be celebrated. There are many churches in this world, including some in the Episcopal Church, that downplay patriotism in the pulpit. I am not one of those. I celebrate today the freedoms which God has blessed this great nation of ours. With freedom comes great responsibility. We are not free to do anything we please. We are not set at liberty to pursue selfish ends. Our independence should not make us infidels. As Paul so eloquently put it, you were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in sinful nature. What is true for the church is true for the nation. Liberty demands civility. Freedom requires a certain behavior. So this July 4th, let's celebrate both freedom and civility. Paul was a champion of liberty. He traveled throughout the Roman Empire starting churches. The Galatian church, from which I read before I started, is no exception. In fact, it might be the most important because it is there in the middle of the empire that his message of Christian freedom was vigorously opposed. Here's what happened. During Paul's missionary journeys, he founded several churches in Asia Minor, to which is today the country of Turkey. These converts to Christianity, some of them Jews living in the area and others Gentiles, accepted the gospel as Paul preached it. The essence of Paul's message to them can be found in Galatians as well. Here's what Galatians says: a man is not justified by observing the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ. A straightforward message of salvation by grace through faith. There were some Christian Jews who believed that Paul went too far, and they came in behind Paul and told these new converts that while Paul was right in what he said, he was only half right. They would have to observe certain ceremonial practices of the Old Testament, which they claimed were still binding on the church, especially the act of circumcision. But I will not go into that issue today, except to say that Paul believed strongly and taught strongly in freedom of belief and of practice, and he is serious about freedom. The framers of our great nation were just as serious about their political and religious freedom. In fact, they made little distinction between them. That is why the Declaration of Independence says that liberty is a right endowed not by nature, but by God himself. We have been serious about liberty ever since. Patrick Henry said, "I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death." Thomas Jefferson, with a bit of humor and absolute seriousness as well, said, "Were it left to me to decide whether we should have a government without newspapers or newspapers without a government, I should not hesitate a moment to prefer the latter." And it need not be pointed out that the First Amendment to the Constitution is, "Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or of the press." We are serious about freedom because we are called to be free. Those are Paul's words, and they are deeply theological, but they are the bedrock on which our country is founded. God gives human beings freedom. We are made in God's image, free to live and think and act, and Jesus gives us freedom from as well as freedom for. But we must remember that he gives us the grace, that free gift from God, freedom to be at liberty from our sins. Now, there's always been and always will be those who are opposed to freedom. Paul faced it, Luther faced it, Lincoln fought it on the battlegrounds of Gettysburg, Martin Luther King encountered it in the streets of Memphis, John Kennedy in his inaugural address warned the enemies of liberty, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we will pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship to support thy friend and oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and success of liberty." Every nation and every person has been offered a wonderful gift, a chance at democratic sovereignty. In some places, and in some it takes up the whole lives, and a lot of time it takes much time to achieve God's liberty. On this very day, democracy is at war. My prayer is that it will win, that it will prevail. On no greater stage is this now being played out than on the streets of Russia and Ukraine. A lot is at stake. But it never ceases to amaze me why some people prefer tyranny, prefer dictatorship, prefer control, especially over democracy and freedom. I believe it is because there are three kinds of people in this world. The first two are related. There are those who have a need to control. And then there are those who have the need to be controlled. We don't always think about that aspect of it. And there's the third kind, the person who is free and insists that other people are free as well. So let's celebrate our liberty, but let us not forget to celebrate our responsibility to civility. Civility is the act of showing respect for others. I chose those two words, liberty and civility, this morning because they recall the old days of our nation. Our freedoms bear a heavy burden. Great thinkers recognize this. Peter Marshall said the following: "The choice before us is plain. Christ or chaos, conviction or compromise, discipline or disintegration." I'm rather tired of hearing, he said, about our rights and privileges as American citizens. The time has come, it is now, when we ought to hear about the duties and responsibilities of our citizenship. America's future depends upon her accepting and demonstrating God's government. Pope John Paul II said, "Every generation needs to know that freedom consists not in doing what we like, but in having the right to do what we should." President John Adams said, "Remember, democracy never lasts very long. It soon wastes and exhausts and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide." Edmund Burke said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Finally, let me quote Paul. When he was criticized because of his teaching liberty and civility, the main criticism was that he taught the Gentiles to indulge themselves in whatever behavior they liked. Well, this is what he really taught. Do not use your freedom to indulge your sinful nature. Rather, use it to serve one another in love. Use your freedom to serve others. That's what true freedom truly is, to serve